We all remember what. Today, we are going to talk about an issue that most of you may not have heard in detail, but it is extremely important for India's security. Let's understand the perspectives of Ladakh issue instead of blunt arguments without any conclusion. First, let me make one thing really clear. I am not a spokesperson of any of the political parties, and I genuinely understand the pain and the sentiments of the people of Ladakh. But just like you, I'm also an Indian citizen. My analysis here is not about politics, not about defending anyone or attacking anyone. I'm looking at this purely through the lens of our country's security. Think of it like this: if you notice a crack in the roof of your house, the very first thing you do is seal it up before the rain comes in, right? In the same way, when tensions flare up in sensitive border region like Ladakh, the government's first instinct is to focus on security. This is not a Ladakh issue, it is a national security issue for all of us. And that's the perspective from which I am speaking today. We all remember what happened in 2019. Article 370 was scrapped by the central government. Jammu and Kashmir was reorganized and Ladakh was carved out as a union territory. At that moment, people in Ladakh were overjoyed. Why? Because for decades they had felt like second class citizens under the dominance of Srinagar. For them, getting UT status was freedom. Finally, Delhi was directly listening to Leh as well as Kargil. And let's not forget, many of the same political leaders and activists who are now leading these protests were actually celebrating in 2019. They hailed the central government's move as historic. But here comes the irony: in just 6 years, the honeymoon is over. The mood has actually changed. Today, those very leaders are on the streets demanding two things. First, that Ladakh be given a full statehood. And second, that Ladakh be brought under the sixth schedule of the constitution, which gives special protection for land, jobs, and culture. Now, the question is simple: if freedom from the Srinagar was celebrated in 2019, why these people are protesting against central government? This is not just a flip flop, it is a dangerous shift that raises big questions about the stability in our most sensitive border region. Now, many of you must be thinking, what exactly is the sixth schedule that every Ladakhi leader is asking for? The sixth schedule is a special part of our constitution, which was created back in 1949 to protect the tribal population of the Northeast. It currently applies in Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura, and Mizoram. Now, what does it do? It actually sets up autonomous district councils. These councils are elected and have powers to make laws on land, forest, village administration, and even on sensitive areas like marriage, inheritance, and social customs. They can also impose certain local taxes. And most importantly, the sixth schedule prevents outsiders from easily buying land in that area or grabbing resources in these areas. The idea is that the people who have lived there for centuries must have control on the land, jobs, and culture. On the face of it, these demands sound completely fair. Who doesn't want democracy at the grassroots level? Who doesn't want to preserve their identity and culture? But here is the caution: Ladakh is not just a tribal belt. This is a very land that stares into the eyes of both Pakistan as well as China. In 2020, we saw blood spilled in Galwan Valley. Our soldiers laid down their lives here in the Ladakh region itself. In 1999, we fought the Kargil War on these same mountains. This is not a state boundary. This is a live war front. And remember, for Ladakh to be added in the sixth schedule, a constitutional amendment or special parliamentary law would be required. It is not just automatic. So the real question is, if Ladakh is given full statehood and sixth schedule autonomy, will that actually strengthen India's hand against China and Pakistan? Or will it create new layers of political instability right on the front line? Mark my words, Ladakh is a frontline defense zone. The Indian army lives here, breathes here, defends here. And every decision about the land, policing, and administration doesn't just affect locals, it directly affects national security. To understand why the center is cautious, let's take an example. West Bengal. West Bengal shares a massive border of more than 2,200 kilometers with Bangladesh. This border is so porous that for decades illegal infiltration has been taking place through this border itself. On paper, the law is really strict. Under the Foreigners Act 1946, if you are suspected of being a foreigner, the burden is on you to prove your citizenship. Under the Passports Act 1967, if you enter without any valid document, you may face jail term. But what happened in practice? Politics happened. Migrants became vote bank. Allegations have there been, and there have been so many incidents also of making fake ration cards, fake Aadhaar cards, even voter ID cards were issued. What should have remained a national security issue was reduced to political arithmetics. The law was bypassed and the security was compromised. In Bengal, the result was pressure on the jobs, schools, and public resources. But if something like this happens in Ladakh, the consequences won't stop at jobs and schools. Here, it could mean enemy infiltration, spying on army movement, and even slow territorial encroachment. This is not politics. That's the national disaster just waiting to happen. Now, let's break down the constitutional angle because this is the heart of the debate. In India, the powers are divided into three lists: union list, state list, and concurrent list. Matters like police and land fall in the state list, which means in full state, the state government and not Delhi controls the police and the land. The center cannot directly command the state police in those areas. But currently, Ladakh is not a state. Under Article 239 of the Constitution, as a union territory, which is without legislature, of course, it runs directly by the president through the lieutenant governor. Which means here both police and land are under the center's control. And why does it matter? Because in Ladakh, unlike in so many states, there is no chief minister who can actually delay or dilute security actions. The army and the ITBP, that is the Indo-Tibetan Border Police, and the civil administration all report to one central chain of command. Responses are actually faster, coordination is tighter, and the accountability is direct. And this is not an accident. In 2019, when Article 370 was removed, this center made Ladakh a UT without an assembly. It was conscious national security decision, not just an administrative reshuffle. And let's not forget, Ladakh carries the scars of Kargil. Those mountains in Leh district witnessed infiltration, war, and the sacrifice of hundreds of our soldiers. And that was not history books, that was in our own lifetime. So, when we debate whether Ladakh should have become a state or remained a UT, let's be honest. This is not about politics. It is about a region that has already been a battlefield and could easily become once again if the security weakens in that area. Politics can wait, but national security cannot. Now, let's take quick look at the three most powerful laws that center uses against illegal infiltration and threats to our sovereignty. First is the Foreigners Act 1946. Normally, the government has to prove you did something wrong. But here in this act, if you are suspected of being a foreigner, you must prove that you are an Indian citizen. The burden of proof is reversed in this law. This allows a quick action against illegal infiltrators. Second is the Passports Act 1967, which is really straightforward. If you want to enter India, you must have valid documents, that is the passport and visa. And if you do not have any of these documents, it is a crime. You can be detained, fined, or deported. Third is the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, that is UAPA. Now, this is India's strongest anti terror law. It allows arrest and detentions of those suspected of terrorism, spying, or activities against India's sovereignty. Even organizations can be banned if they threaten India's security. But remember, the detention requires judicial approval. So there is an oversight. On paper, these laws give center immense power, but laws are only as good as the administration that actually enforces these laws. And this is where these Ladakh's UT status is really vital. Here, enforcement is under the direct control of the center. No local politics, no vote bank calculations actually apply here. Even a few hours delay in detaining a suspect could be enough for an infiltrator to actually disappear. And in border zone like Ladakh, that delay could cost us territory and even sometimes life. Now I throw the ball in your court. You tell me, what do you think? Should this Ladakh be given a full statehood and sixth schedule protection with local leaders controlling the land as well as the police? Or should Ladakh remain under the direct control of the center, where security decisions are faster and insulated from any local politics? And this is not just theory, this is about the front line of India, the same mountains where we lost Indian soldiers in Kargil as well as Galwan. So don't think of this as someone else's problem. It is actually a question that affects every single Indian. Type out your thoughts in the comment section. I'll be reading all of your questions closely because this is not just about my analysis. This has to be a national conversation today and now.